Welcome to BMI Redefined with Jen and Mo. Let's do this.
Oh yeah, let's do this.
Welcome back to BMI Redefined with
Jen.
and Mo.
Yay!
Yay. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Today, we are going to be looking at a special time edition, The Science of Emotions.
Ooh.
How to be happier. The upside of bad moods. Really? And secrets to mental strength.
Ah.
Yeah. Yeah. And,
I know I could use some of that.
I think we all couldn't we? Right? Don't you think?
Yeah. I think
Yeah. So we're going to talk about right now, we're going to just dive right in about all about emotions and feelings, are the world's universal language, no matter where you go in the world, right?
That's right.
When people cry, it's either they're sad or they're happy, or, tears of joy, tears of sorrow, right? When they're smiling, hopefully they're happy.
Right.
But we're also going to be talking about that too, how sometimes a smile can hide emotions.
Yes,
right?
it can.
Not behind our masks right now, but actually I do
know.
smile behind my mask.
I do. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking really it's interesting, and we'll talk about different visual cues and body language and all that. But I really think eyes these days, with having to wear the masks during this pandemic, people can read eyes. And I think people's expressiveness through their eyes is a lot more obvious now than it used to be. I mean, it might just be me, but like if you're somewhere in the grocery store or wherever you are with the mask on, and you're happy about something, or you see somebody do your eyes just kind of light up above that mask?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they do.
Yeah. Your eyes are the window to your soul.
Exactly. You're so
Right.
profound.
I know. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got so many things coming up that are going to be like that.
And
No,
share with
teasing.
us.
So experts, they say, long believed that human emotions had 6 basic emotions: happiness, sadness, anger, surprise, fear, and disgust. And this is what Mandy Oaklander is telling us. But she says that in more recent research, there are more than 20 different emotions, including awe and appall. I mean, those are just 2, But of course, there are so many emotions that we all go through.
Well, don't you think they kind of interrelate at times too?
Yeah, I think though the 6 basic ones that we just mentioned are the umbrellas, and then there may be some under that too.
Yeah.
And
Well, for example, when I get mad, I tend to cry. Working on that. Doesn't work in a professional situation, so I rarely get mad, which is a good thing.
yeah.
But yeah, that triggers something, and maybe we can work through this a little bit in this session today. But that triggers something in me that if I get like just hopping mad, then the tears start
Waterworks
flowing.
come.
Yes, and
Yeah,
it's
see,
so
I don't
You want to
cry.
make a point, and they're bawling. It's hard.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah. And when emotions announce themselves, they're, so loudly, they are really important to listen to,
right,
to
validate them.
and to validate them, and not to ignore them, but to, look at them, embrace them, and figure out, why are you feeling this way, And, and it's called emotional intelligence. People, who understand the emotions of people around you, right?
Right.
And just skills to better connect with people. And there are some people in this world who do not have emotional intelligence. Would you agree with that or not?
Oh, I would agree with that.
Right.
So,
And I was just going to say one more thing. It just says that it's not your imagination being around happy friends. It really does make things seem brighter.
well, yeah, the emotions are contagious. Yeah, yeah. But also in this section, it was interesting that I saw a couple of points about reframing situations too, about looking at your feelings from the perspective of, is this really, like when I cry, when I get mad, is that really the emotion that I should be portraying right then? What, I mean, was the anger something that really needed to to be shown, to be
Right.
experienced,
Right.
to be shared. Probably not. But learning how to reframe a situation in your mind is kind of like we talked about in the stress issue. You know, looking at some type of stressor as a challenge rather than a threat. So looking at our emotions is something that we can use to maybe foster a relationship or help with a conversation or even start a conversation rather than a shouting match or what have you.
Right.
You know, just something along that line. But I like what you said about being around happy people, though, because I think that does kind of add to that whole mental process on reframing what's going on. If you have tendencies toward a negative emotion, you know, we know people that are more the glass is half empty most of
Right,
the time
exactly,
instead of
right.
the glass is half full. So if you have those tendencies, then maybe there's some type of reframing. But the researchers in this one and Mandy's article talked about how having some level of negative or negativity can be helpful in life. And we talked about this as far as being careful or cautious at times, especially around spiders. But but we'll get into fear factor later, won't we?
Right.
But you know, that there is some room, there's a role, there's room for having some type of negative emotions.
Well, I think too, it said in here somewhere in this magazine, it said that being negative can be helpful because it make those negative people go and learn something, or they go to the other side to either prove their point or to see a different side, to see a different perspective.
Right.
If you're having an argument with your partner and you are really solid on your side and he's solid on his side, or she or whatever, then that is not really coming to a, I don't know, common ground or listening. I think you have to respect what the other person is saying.
Well, that's a good point, because, and one thing that you mentioned to me this morning when we were talking about this particular issue and show is that, you know, we talked about people that we know or people that see things so positively, or you and I are both relatively positive people. And when we're not, people around us really notice.
Yeah.
And we were talking about that.
Yeah.
And so you said, whichever, if you're more positive or more negative, you said don't live there all the time.
Yeah,
You
right.
said there needs to be moderation
Right.
in emotions, just like we've talked about moderation in anything else
Exactly.
in life.
And that's, I think, where we get into trouble, is if we're too far this way or too far that way, and we are unable to see both sides,
Right. Yeah.
you know? So, yeah.
Listen up.
Did you see that there was a mood, what is it? A mood meter app. I was about to
Yes.
download it, but I'm like, nah, I really don't. I really
Yeah.
don't have the time to do that.
I was looking at some of the pictures on this app, and
Yeah.
it said, you know, it had your whatever you're feeling, and then whether you want to stay in that emotion or you need to shift or pivot into another emotion.
Right.
There's a touch screen for that. I don't know if I'm ready.
I don't
for
know
that
about
yet.
that. But understanding what you're feeling and why you're feeling it can give you an edge in love and life. And this is unlocking your emotional intelligence. So, you know, and that's why you, or, you know, a person, not you, Jenny, I'm not saying that. But anyway.
All right. What are you calling me out on?
Yep. Okay. Goes to therapy to better understand their own emotions. Right. I mean, that's why we go.
Oh my gosh. The person that wrote this article's name is Jenny.
I know, I
Spelled the
saw
same
that.
way.
Yep. I saw that.
Isn't that cool?
I know, Jenny Graves. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Jenny. But you know, that is true. I mean, I don't know. Like when I went to my first therapy session, she brings out an emotional chart. Tell me how you're feeling. And there are like, I swear to God, there are like 100 faces on that chart. And I'm like, okay, I'm feeling anxious because there's so many to choose from. I said, I feel this. I think I pointed to like 70 of them. Anyway, but it was pretty cool though.
But
you know.
but there's something in this particular article that really struck me, and I believe you too, how when that person, that professional is asking, how are you, they deeply want to hear the real answer on how are you, as opposed to people you don't know, acquaintances, all that are always like, how are you? And what do we usually say? Oh, good, fine.
Right.
And like I was talking to somebody earlier today, about this whole idea, and even if things aren't going, according to schedule, according to plan, or exactly going well, there's
Like this,
some
like this podcast.
like this
No,
podcast
I'm teasing.
just-
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yes.
that I was on a roll, Mo. Okay, so when you're answering that question, there's some kind of relative factor, because we were talking about somebody that was like having a bad day and just kind of was living in that moment. And so I said, well, let's say I've taken my car in to get the tire fixed or something. I actually tapped a curb this morning a little bit. I was getting out of the way of somebody pulling out of a parking place. Anyway, so I'm going to take it in to just have them touch it up a little bit. But anyway,
True confessions.
exactly. That's a whole nother show. You got me flustered. So when I go in there, to have them look at my tire or whatever, they will say, oh, Jenny, how are you? And I will say, better than my tire. It's as relatively, there's something going on in our lives that might not be as perfect as what we think it should be, but it's not inside us. It's not personal. So, I'm fine.
Well, and it's like what you said earlier today when we were talking about this. It's, looking at it from a different perspective. Things
Yes.
can always be worse.
Yes.
Right. And, and it's not that I don't trust people, but I have to say, I don't trust the, hey, hi, the happy, happy, happy person all the time. Yeah.
I'm starting to take that personally.
Well, you kind of should, because like when I first met you,
Oh, I thought that was supposed to happen later in the
it
show.
is.
Okay,
but,
go ahead. Go ahead.
But when I first met you, you were like, hey, let's work out. Let's do this. And you came out with your long blonde hair. And I was just like, oh my gosh, who is this lady? She's perky. B, she's totally fit. C, she's going to drive me nuts. And then I got to know you, and it was like, wow, okay. She's smart. She has her PhD. She is, amazing.
Emotional, calls you all the time.
Right? Exactly, right? So I was just like, okay, this might be a good friend to have. She's smart.
Well,
But no, you're much more than that. It just taught me that you just don't, judge a book by its cover, and there's always usually more to a person. It's like an onion. It's got many different layers. You have many different layers. It's like a 7-layer dip.
oh my.
Okay, I'm done.
I've been compared to a lot of things, but never a 7-layer dip. I love it. I feel special.
See? You're right. You're right. No.
So,
But yeah, go ahead.
well, I was just kind of coming back to that kind of, how are you? What's that, that outward
Yeah.
emotion or whatever that we say, like the good or fine or whatever. But later in this chapter, they talked about asking a little more deeply than just say, how are you? Kind of that superficial, but how are you today?
Yeah.
And I think this was in the bereavement section of
Yeah,
this
yeah.
chapter, life after death kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, asking a person whether they are going through bereavement or whatever challenges, or if you know their challenges or if you don't know their challenges, the better question you can ask. And everybody try this out when you
Right.
today. How are you today?
Yeah. It's more personal, more
It is.
specific.
It is.
And
be ready. They might unload.
right, exactly. No, I'm teasing. But, self-awareness, she says in here, it's Ginny who says this, Ginny Graves, self-awareness, painful as it can be, is exactly the point of emotional intelligence. And I think that's brilliant.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because self-awareness is everything. If you're not self-aware, I mean, it has meaningful consequences, she says. And it can impact your relationships and your day-to-day well-being, So,
Well, and she also pointed out that or somebody might say, well, I just am not emotionally aware of myself or other people. But one thing that she points out, and some of the other researchers pointed out here, is you can actually hone those skills.
Right.
You can become sharper at the basic skills of emotional intelligence, just like you can learn math or science or
right. It takes
learning
practice.
to play the piano or learning whatever.
It just takes practice.
It just takes practice. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think we get to practice.
Yeah. Well, how do you practice it though? Taking deep breaths like we've mentioned before, or maybe going out and exercising and just not having music playing, just, listen to the birds and listen to nature. There are different ways to practice,
Oh, yeah.
And, and naming your emotions is really the first step. So
Right.
there you go. Because, and one more thing here, it says, when you are not aware of your emotions, they can dictate your behavior for better or for worse. So that's pretty cool.
Well, and it gets in also what they were saying about the having, peaceful or happy relationships that are not just surface peaceful or happy, but, that have a depth to them as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's, and that's up to everyone's, relationship, how deep they want to go. So that's that. And then we were going to talk about, just really quickly, happiness is a slippery thing, and the nature of it changes as quickly as our own lives do, right? So 8 ways to be happier. Remember from where you came. Don't underestimate the power of nostalgia. And when you swap stories about the bad prom in 1989 or the amazing cross-country trip of 1971 with others, you view yourself in a more positive light and form tighter bonds. Remember your past. Don't dwell on it, but remember it. And remember how your past has created your present and your future.
Okay, so Sarah in this article is talking about not dwelling. Okay, so there's mulling versus dwelling. Okay, so or learning from versus dwelling. So if you kind of think a little bit about what, I don't want to call them failures, but things that didn't go quite right in the past, learning from those experiences. Let the past teach you, but not define you. How about that?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And basically spreading the wealth, meaning, it makes you feel good to, when you go up to Starbucks and you order something and you pay for the guy behind you, that pay it forward type thing.
We just had that happen recently.
Yeah.
In the line at, I think it was Panera.
Yeah,
people
right.
paid for our coffees.
Yeah, see, isn't that nice?
Yeah. Okay, so eat a snack around 2 p.m.
Oh, yeah, that's what I actually do that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of times I do.
And
A
it
lot of
staves
times-
off
Yeah.
the hunger for dinner.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
just, working on something in the afternoon. Especially if I'm, going to be doing training later in the day or whatever, then that's a good time. But just overall, just a snack around too, just to kind of get that energy back going is a very positive.
And of course, we know about exercise, and we'll be talking about that as we come up. And limiting your options. When you're trying to make a choice, don't be trying to make a choice out of 10 different things. Dwindle it down to maybe 1 or 2. Start baking.
Or learn to hula.
Or join a quilting bee?
bee.
Yeah, I'm not going to do
That's-
that. Just find something that occupies 100% of your attention while you're engaged in it. Just find something that you enjoy, right? And make your bed.
Yeah.
Those are things that can make you happy. Okay, You're looking quizzically, but I want to tell you something. When my bed is not made in the morning, I feel very disorganized for the whole day. I love having my bed made. I love going upstairs if I want to take a little nap or if I watch some Netflix or something to be in a nice made bed. In fact, it drives me insane when someone who shall remain nameless comes home, gets into the bed under the covers and messes the whole thing up. During the day, you put a blanket over you. You don't get into the bed. Now, do you have a different concept of that? Because you're looking at me like you're crazy. Go ahead.
I mean, I try to make the bed, but it doesn't happen every single day, and it really doesn't bother me.
Okay, that's fine.
I mean, I like it,
Yeah.
but I don't always make it happen. If I have other things to do.
No, I know. I have to make the bed.
So we're different.
We are different. Isn't that fancy dancy? Okay.
Well, okay. Well, no, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So a couple of different things. So the bed be made, but other areas of the house that are not straightened up or bother me.
Okay.
Okay. So
Okay.
yeah, because I
That's
have
fair.
a thing about I love pillows and blankets and all that. So if the bed can be unmade in the bedroom, because if somebody comes over, they're not going to be walking through there, but the family room, the living room,
Has to
the
be
dining
in order.
area, everything needs to be more in order and welcoming.
Okay. I can see that. I can see that.
This is something I need to think about.
Yeah. See, I look at my bedroom as my haven, my quiet place.
Yeah.
So I try to make it as peaceful as possible because it's my space.
Yeah.
You know?
Neat perspective. I hadn't really thought of it that way.
Yeah. So the next one that we're going to be talking about is The Upside of Bad Moods. You want to read this by Susan David?
Oh, yeah. So the intro. No one likes to be cranky, but it turns out that negative feelings may have surprising perks. In this excerpt from the book Emotional Agility, a Harvard Medical School psychologist explains why making peace with our anger, fear, and sadness can usher in a more authentic sort of joy. Wow, do tell.
Well, when we are overly cheerful, we tend to neglect important threats and dangers, right? Because I feel that sometimes that can really cover up that how you're really feeling, right? And you don't always have to be happy, jovial all the time. I think there was a point in my life when I was really like that. And it covered up a lot. I would joke a lot. I would, laugh a lot, but it was really covering up some pain. And it was covering up some anger. I'll just sweep it under the carpet. And it'll be fine. It'll just go away magically. The magic carpet ride.
Right.
Aladdin, right? But it's not like that. Because what it does is it just collects.
Well, it does. And yeah, I've experienced that. Because I tend to come across as, smiling and all that. And actually this...
Really?
What?
Really?
Really? I'm just now
Shocker.
realizing that. But it's interesting in this particular article by Susan David, it's been more than 50 years since the smiley face, that little yellow circle with the black eyes and the smile.
How many years?
Came into being. More than 50 years.
Wow.
When it first appeared. I love that image. I love emojis, as you know, and that little smiley face is like favorite. And so hundreds of millions of Have a Nice Day buttons, t-shirts, and coffee mugs later, it's as iconic as the red, white, and blue. And why not? After all, it says in this article, the pursuit of happiness is front and center in America's Declaration of Independence.
Yeah. I just think of that smiley face in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles when Steve Martin is talking to the lady at the desk at the airport.
Yeah.
Wipe that smile off your face. It was very... Have a nice day. She's like, rah. And there's Forrest Gump uses the smiley face, right? In his with the t-shirt.
Yeah. And it says, and then today with the digital age,
Yeah.
emojis and smiley faces, you know, it's everywhere.
Right, right. You know, it's pretty funny, I think.
So kind of in this article is like, well, okay, is it happiness why we're here? Is it good for us or whatever? But then they move into just moving beyond the positive, you know, emoticons and all that, is when we are overly cheerful, we tend to neglect important threats and dangers.
Right,
and,
exactly.
You know, like you were talking about. So that's, you know, there needs to be, I guess it's getting back into that kind of depth.
Well,
idea.
you know, and what I thought this was very, very interesting is it says the trouble with happiness is that it's not too big of a stretch that being excessively happy could kill you. It says you might engage in riskier behaviors like drinking too much. You know, hey, let's do a fifth round on me. You know, this is in the magazine.
Right.
Or binge eating, more cake. Or skipping birth control. What could possibly go wrong? And using drugs, you know, hey, let's party, you know, that type of thing. Right. So an excess of freewheeling, giddiness, and a relative absence of more sober emotions can even be a marker for mania, a dangerous symptom in psychological illness.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And when everything is like, oh, everything's awesome.
Everything's fine. Everything's perfect.
Yeah.
It's like the 50s.
Yeah. We tend to just overlook some of the details that could show up later.
Yeah. And I really do, you know, it's kind of funny. We're talking about the cell phone and everything with all the different emojis. And, you know, it's really a wonderful thing because we have so many emotions that can be done and said through those. And it's not just 6 basic emotions. There's hundreds. And it's just the way that we are communicating now as a society that we're not afraid to show our emotions.
Right. Well, and it's interesting how, you know, a picture speaks 1,000 words kind of thing.
Right.
And in like the finance literature, there are some studies done on people and how they react to financial information, and rather than showing maybe a chart or a graph or some type of numerical analysis, you know, for the stock market showing a smiley face or a kind of a stationary mouth, like, oh, it was stable today, or it went down, showing those, and the reactions of investors over that, they had more reaction over whether or not it was not that they were just pictorial learners, but I mean, they controlled for a lot of different factors.
Right.
But there was more action and reaction over facial representation or picture representation than there would be over just a bunch of numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I think the psychologists were studying that, how people react to information from human information processing standpoint. And yeah, I mean, sometimes you get a text message and it's just an emoji.
Right.
Yeah, or a bitmoji. You know, it's not any words.
And I think that, you know, too.
And you know exactly what they meant.
Exactly. Exactly. I have friends, as you do, from different cultures. And it's really how a culture's definition of happiness is, right? For example, it says Chinese Americans prefer contentment, while Americans with European backgrounds prefer excitement. And Japanese culture is built around loyalty and its connection to guilt, whereas American culture embodies more socially disengaged emotions such as pride or anger.
Wow.
I mean, that's really kind of packed full of different things, different emotions.
Yeah.
But you really do have to know the social cues of where people are coming from. You know, like if you're working with someone who is Chinese, you have to realize that maybe they are emotionally apt in their culture, but here in the States, it might be a different feel.
Yeah.
So you can't be too judging.
Right.
And you have to look at their perspective.
Well, yeah, we were talking about this in past conversations too, about how we typically behave and how others perceive that or respond to that. And then if we're a little different, like I mentioned, there was a day where I had a lot of things going on and I didn't get to the gym the time I wanted to work out with my trainer at the time and all that. And so I did a Facebook post that night, and we were going to kind of get into the social media idea. And and it was not all perky inspiration, like they usually were at that point, and or still are, I guess, for the most part. And I had friends commenting and calling me saying, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And all I did was say that the day didn't go exactly according to schedule. I just was a little late for my appointments, and things just, weren't exactly the way they usually are. And people took that as I had had just a really, really, really bad day. I mean, and really it hadn't been. It was just a little bit.
Well,
had to pivot.
You can't be negative Nelly on Facebook.
No, I mean, I
'Cause
learned
everything's perfect.
No,
Look at that beautiful beach. Look at that beautiful everything. Everything is sunny on
yes.
Facebook.
And
How
so-
dare you put anything negative?
Gosh.
But isn't that true, though?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we
Or-
kind of learned about how,
Right.
how people perceive you, and to, not, like I said, or what you said, not be judgy, or not react to what you're perceiving the other person means.
Right.
And it could be a cultural basis, it could be a personality basis, what have you. It could just be an emotional experience basis.
Right.
But to really don't just take it at face value, not to be cliche, but
Right, true.
that's basically the message.
Right. And just really quickly, let's just go through this. It says, good news for grumps. If you're grumpy, it helps you form arguments, helps improve your memory, encourage perseverance, help you know when to walk away, boost your ability to reason. I think that's what I mentioned the last time, not the last time, but when we first opened this podcast, is choose, people who are grumpy, choose to read more articles that oppose their positions instead of practicing confirmation bias. So that's that. Why do we cry? Yeah, I don't know either.
I don't know. I was about to say I don't know, but
So when I'm having an emotional breakdown.
Yeah.
No, science is close to solving the mystery of tears and why some people don't shed them at all.
do you know anybody who just does not cry?
No. I mean, I know people that don't cry a lot, but I've never met anyone who has not cried.
Right.
Like everyone in my life that's close to me has always cried
Yeah.
sometime. And humans, though, I didn't know this, humans are the only creatures whose waterworks can be triggered by their feelings. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't either. That was interesting. So it's just kind of, and Darwin had some big thoughts on this, where he was talking about emotions, and he said emotional tears are purposeless nearly 150 years ago. But then we have University College of London Professor Trimble, who says we don't know anything about why people don't cry.
Right.
So, that's I guess you can say different emotions can trigger. Like I said, anger triggers tears in me. But then tears of joy. We've talked about all that a few minutes ago. But what makes people where they don't cry? I mean, that's still kind of mysterious.
It is. Yeah, it is. And I thought this was kind of interesting. How often do people cry? Women cry 2 to 5 times a month, and men cry 1 time every 2 months. That's pretty definitive. I don't know. That's average, though.
Yeah.
I don't think I've cried this month yet. But the month's not over.
The top, and there's a section that says the top 5 places people cry.
Yeah. What is that?
Okay, so 9% in public places. 7% in transit.
So like in your car or the train or something. I can see that.
Yeah.
I've done that before.
Yeah, me too. Only 6% at work or school. 1% in healthcare settings.
Okay.
Only 1%. 74% at home. Yeah.
Right. And when do they cry? Between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. I think that's hilarious. That's at the end of the day, dinner time. Things are probably,
You finally had time to really process.
Yeah. It's
Everything
crazy
going
man.
on. I don't know. It's just interesting that somebody would do this study. I find
I know
it
it's
fascinating.
it's kind of funny actually. And it says if tears are so important for human bonding, Are people who never cry perhaps less socially connected? I believe that because they can kind of step away from it. It's from the emotions because they're not completely connected to emotions. And there are people like that.
Yeah.
There really
I
are.
think so. Yeah.
I mean, and, the non-crying people had a tendency to withdraw and describe their relationship experiences as less connected. Mm-hmm. So I do believe that. But at the very end of the article, Vingerhutz, I love that last name. Mm-hmm. He says, tears are of extreme relevance for human nature. We cry because we need other people. So Darwin, he says with a laugh, was totally wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor Darwin.
Well, and it's interesting too, just thinking about crying. Have there ever been a situation where you're upset about either an experience, a person, or you've gotten some anxiousness in you, or you're feeling some stressors, and I've even been walking around the house, getting ready to go somewhere. I think, okay, I don't have time to cry right now. Just let's just suck it up, friends, and let's just go.
I know, right?
Because my thing is kind of vain sometimes. I don't have time to redo my eye makeup, and so let's just figure this out, deal with it later.
Plan B.
Plan B.
Plan B.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that.
We'll figure that out later.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so that's just
funny.
Me.
So I think that is that kind of sums up that why do we cry, and just realizing that some people don't cry. Some people are just not as connected to an emotion as maybe someone else is, and that's
Would you
okay.
say stoic?
Stoic, yeah, right. Like Queen Elizabeth. Doesn't that though? I mean, I'm sure she cries. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, she's been through a lot.
But then again,
something.
just the perceptions, because we're talking about perceptions.
Yeah.
Of emotions, and don't you see two people going through exactly the same situation or experience? I'll say, say whether it's professional or spiritual or relational or familial or recreational or however you want to phrase it, two people walking side by side down that path, and one of them is expressing emotions, and the other one is just stoically going through the process. Don't you kind of want to interview both of them?
Right.
Say,
right.
How are you processing the same steps through this in very different ways? It's just kind of fascinating to me.
Well, it's how our brain works, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Think,
yeah.
And that's, it is kind of interesting.
So you're going to talk about some natural mood changes?
Yeah, natural mood changers. We're going to kind of rush through this a little bit, but how 6 mainstays of modern life tweak our neurochemistry and the way we feel. Well, we know that alcohol is one of those things, right? And we know that it, like alcohol and drugs and food actually too, you can have all this, you can have it one time and it makes you feel so good and you want to recreate that time again. But the next time you have it, if you have it close to the first time, you may need a little bit more to recreate that feeling. It's like, cake. It's like, oh yeah, I had that piece of cake. But wait a minute. The next day, the cake is left over. Ooh, I want another piece of cake. And then it's not the same. So it's like, okay, I'm just going to have a little bit more. And then if you have, say you're on the 4th day of having cake and you have a little bit more and a little bit more each day, you could get sick. Because like, oh, that was way too much cake.
Well, you could. And something I learned, a long time ago, I guess when I got into the exercising and training, is, and I was working on trimming down at the time, the 3rd bite is no better than the 1st.
Yeah.
And that's that's the frame of mind I go through holidays with. When you're at the pandemic, there won't be social occasions so much, but I mean, when there are social occasions and you want to try everything, try everything.
Yeah.
But the third bite really, like in the morning. And see, you didn't mention the caffeine in this, so
No, I didn't.
we're both sitting here with our coffees,
I
and
know,
I know,
right?
but you only wanted tall. I got the grande.
Well, because they say caffeine isn't as potent as the others, but go ahead.
Yeah, but it is there, and I do love my coffee. And that first sip of coffee in the morning,
Oh, it's great.
it's great. But then the first sip of the second cup is not as
No, it's not.
good.
It is, right? It's not, is
It's
it?
not. It's still there. It's still okay.
Yeah, but it's not the same.
It's not the same.
No.
So I
And
don't
then you're
know. I
hyper
just
caffeinated and you're like,
Yeah.
off the wallpaper, right?
Yeah, so it just made
Yeah.
me think of that, and like what you were talking along the same lines as what you were talking about
Yeah.
the next time or the
Well, I
next
think, right. And
serving is not going to be the same.
right. And I think what they were saying about caffeine is it's not as addicting as the alcohol and the drugs and
Right,
the food.
right.
But with caffeine, if you have too much, it can aid in and creating more anxiety, and it can also, cause some panic attacks. So those are things that extra
True.
caffeine can do.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I'll say this one. Even though emotional impact of other drugs and chemicals is mixed, it's safe to say that an orgasm is 100% positive mood booster. Right? Right? Actually, no, not always. But because you have mixed emotional states. However, overall, orgasms are awesome.
Okay then.
Why do you just get quiet? It's nothing to be, we're women. It happens. Okay, whatever.
Don't really have a comment right now.
The overall, the big O is linked to positive moods. So that's good.
That's good.
Mm-hmm. And it's like a reset button. You want to talk? No, you don't want to talk. But it is. It's like a reset button for the brain, helping to disrupt obsessive thought patterns and treat depression, anxiety, and obsessive compulsive disorder. Wow, it takes care of a lot of things.
And exercise does too.
Exercise does too. It raises.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah,
that
exercise
dopamine.
can
Go for it.
stave
Talk
off-
about exercise, Ginny.
Exercise can stave off depression, help combat depression. It helps
Right.
prevent, it can even help prevent certain cognitive, you've got me just
You're all
flustered.
flustered. What's going on?
Okay.
Well, I know what's going on.
You're not going to edit this out either. Okay, so we've been talking about external forces that affect our moods and how we react to certain situations or emotions. And exercise comes big time into play in this arena, where it can actually combat depression. It can just help us feel better about ourselves. It can help us to relieve emotional issues, ward off cognitive decline. I mean, it just helps us overall, not to mention the physiological and the physical impact of having a regular exercise routine in our daily schedule. So it's really nice to know that we can exercise and stave off some of these negative emotions like we've been talking about.
Okay. Yeah. So I have a question for you. Would sex be considered exercise? Yes.
Yes.
It burns calories.
It burns calories.
There you go. Okay.
Yes, it
moving on.
does.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Anything else you want to say about that?
Yeah, from what we talk about, the impact of exercise, okay, how it actually physically improves, muscle tone and bone strength and all that, but that's all good. But also from a brain activity standpoint, we're actually, helping with the neurological pathways and the functioning within the brain. To even when you hear about more neurons and more happiness, a runner's high, that kind of thing, it can actually bring on feelings of, euphoria. Mm-hmm. So exercise plays a definite role in improving mood. Bottom line.
Great. Euphoric.
Yes.
So therefore, sex could be considered an exercise. Now, can I put that into my Fitness Pal?
I'll get back to you on that.
Okay. We should look that up. See if Fitness Pal has that as an activity. It's got to count for something. Okay, so part 2. So connecting with others. This is huge for your emotional well-being. And Maya Angelou says, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
True. I love that.
And I mean, you can forgive many things, but if there are some things that have been really done to you, you'll never forget that pit in your stomach feeling.
That's for sure.
And, emotional contagion, are emotions contagious? Yes. You can catch a friend's fear or a coworker's anger. Their joy can rub off on you too, says Alexandria Sifferlin.
Well, yeah, and it also quotes a statistic that says when a nearby friend is happy, that happiness can spread and increase your own happiness by 25%. Who
Isn't
knew?
that crazy?
There's a study.
Hey, imagine that.
Yeah.
Well, there's a funny little thing here that says she feels, he feels, and women. So I'll read the woman part and you read the male part. Okay. So the bold one. So, for example, sadness is the first one. Women, on average, women cry more than men.
Okay. Men are less likely than women to express vulnerability. And according to this study, men are about 4 times as likely as women to die from suicide.
Wow. Anger. Women, they may be slower to act out of anger than men.
But men, on the other hand, are more likely to assault the target of their anger physically.
Wow. Fear and anxiety. Women are also about twice as likely as men to have specific phobias, such as toward heights or snakes or spiders.
Spiders. I was thinking that. So then, talking about men, though, in relationships, sports, what have you, men are driven by thrill even when facing danger.
And love. The love emotion. University of Montreal researchers found that women are better than men at reading facial expressions and tone of voice.
Interesting. But men show caring by offering solutions to alleviate stress or sadness.
Boy, isn't that true?
Yeah. Yeah. Always trying to
Every time I say something, well,
they want to fix it.
Fix it.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's okay. So I listen to that, advice and everything. So on page 51, we're going to talk about people appear to process information with their full body rather than simply their mind. So body language, right? And are first impressions valid?
Yeah. And you talked about your first impression.
Like how I was totally off, right? And remembering that we can be fooled by body language or incorrectly interpret someone's facial expressions, especially upon first meeting or among people we don't know very well, it may prevent us from making bias-based judgments. So, yeah. So when I first saw you, I explained that. What did you think of me when you first met me?
Well, I met you and I felt intimidated.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I knew you were a professional singer and opera teacher. I mean, Katie had kind of filled me in and you'd experienced this big procedure and you had this amazing personality, just a big and bold personality, and you're funny and everything. And I just thought, oh my God, what is she, what could I possibly, I could, and you're very strong, and I thought if I tell her that she needs to do 10 burpees or whatever, she's probably going to say no, and I'm going to have to come up with a different plan.
Plan B.
But but in actuality,
I was pretty open.
You were very open.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
But my first thought was, this is going to be a tough customer.
Right. Exactly. Right. Exactly.
But I mean, you were nice and polite and everything, but you're so professional and, well established and
Aw.
successful and everything that I
Right.
thought, oh my gosh.
Yeah. This is going to be tricky.
Yeah.
But it ended up being a phenomenal friendship.
I
yeah?
know, right?
I know. It's crazy.
That's so cool.
It's just crazy. And it's because we opened ourselves up to each other. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So
You're still a much better singer than
right.
I am.
Well,
And you always will be.
That's okay. You work out better. So secrets to mental toughness. I loved this little
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Pushing the boulder uphill.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
one way to reduce the potential for losing your cool is to plan for the worst,
Yeah. Well, that's like Michael Jordan talked about too.
Right.
Always the practicing.
Exactly. And I think the biggest thing on this is know your plan B.
Yeah.
And if you do, this is what I wanted to talk about, pace. Know your primary thing that you're going to do. Then if that doesn't work out, then go to your alternate. And then if that doesn't work out, go to your contingency. And if that doesn't work, go to your emergency.
Oh my
love
gosh.
that.
How many times have I gone straight to the emergency plan?
Right? Exactly. And that was said by Mr. Dwyer, who was a Marine, Drew Dwyer, who was a Marine and CIA operative. And he actually passed away in 2019. But he said that. PACE, P-A-C-E, primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency.
I love that acronym.
So,
I think
yeah.
that could go on the bathroom mirror. That's good.
And thinking it through, can really help you preserve your sanity. So I just watched a movie on Netflix.
Uh-oh.
No, not a movie, a series called The Queen's Gambit.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, you need to watch it. It's
Okay.
really, really good.
Cool.
Anyway, she sees the chessboard before she even makes her plays. And so she knows how to play the entire game. And then she does an alternative. So she's like, okay, if he plays that one differently, then I have a solution to that. Or if he plays it like that, then I'll play it like that. So always have a plan B, because it may not go the way that you plan it to go.
Well, in economics and game theory, we used to call it action reaction.
Right.
And that's how businesses try to figure out or anticipate what their
Right.
competitors are going to do. And so with us, it's anticipating what others in our lives, how they're
Right.
going to behave or react.
Right.
But oftentimes, though, I find myself not expecting the worst on a reaction, and it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Somebody doesn't react that intensely.
And that causes anxiety because you don't know what. So what you have to think of is you have to expect good things and
Right.
Give it a chance and like you said, look for that silver lining. And how can you make things emotionally more stable for you? Is to rage proof your days. Unfriend people if you need to, just for your own sanity. Don't get hangry,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Right.
Declutter your desk or make your bed.
My desk. Yeah. Anyway, go on.
No, I'm just saying your kitchen is pretty organized. And then do one thing at a time.
Well, that's
Try not to multitask. Try not to do everything.
Right.
That's what you were saying.
one at a time.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that we did a really good job in talking about this science of emotions. Is there anything you want to part
Well,
with?
there's
or-
one part toward the end of this article on how to deal with getting mad that talks about breathing. From UCLA, Susan Smalley is a professor there, and she says when you're feeling tense, you're feeling angry, relax your shoulders and breathe, as you say, Mo. Breathe deeply so your stomach slowly rises and falls. All cues to the mind that your body is calming down. I like that. Yeah.
I like that too. And and when you're breathing, make sure that you're breathing all the way around so that when you inhale and you take in that breath, you're filling up your lungs and your rib cage all the way around your body is expanding just to feel that entire movement of your body. And it really does work.
I like that.
Yeah. Well, this has been good. I've learned how to be happier. These were the objectives, right?
Yes.
I've learned the upside of bad moods. So I'm going to have more bad moods. But I'm not going to dwell on them.
Right.
And the secrets to mental strength is just be emotionally accountable to yourself, right? You know?
Yeah, and learned and some insights on why people cry or why they don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've learned a lot through the science of emotions and what time is brought to the table on this.
Yep, exactly. It's good.
Good conversation.
So I'm
with
ready to
you.
go for a good long cry. No, I'm teasing.
Well,
Actually, I'm going to go check my Fitbit.
I know what you're going to be looking for. Anyway,
Okay, well, this has been a good conversation.
it's been a good conversation. One more thing. Our website,
Oh, yeah.
bmi-redefined.com.
Okay.
Check us out. Send us a message. We want to hear from you.
Yep. Hey, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time on BMI Redefined with
Jen.
and Mo.
Yay. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Have a great week.
Yep. Have a good one.
Yep.